Thank you for having me. All right, strap in. We got a lot of stuff to go through and we're running short on time. So I will preface by saying I'm going to send over this deck afterwards. We're going to get into some basics. We're going to get into some more advanced use cases. You don't need to memorize it all right now. I want to show you what's available to use that you may not have dug into yet. Again, my name is Andrew Glenn. I'm an AI deployment manager based in San Francisco. I've been with OpenAI almost 2 years, so like 5 to 7 years in the AI space. I got my offer the day I left the hospital with my son. So for anyone who has children, the past 2 years, it's been a whole thing. It's been exciting. This session, and sorry if I'm heads down, I'm going to be jumping around between tabs here, but this session is meant to span some basics, as well as unpack a few common workflows that I see across campuses for both faculty and staff. My goal is to arm you with some tangible ways to start leveraging ChatGPT as a practical tool and not simply as a novelty. We'll get into some prompting best practices and some key features that you may not have had a chance to explore yet. And we're going to align on what responsible use looks like, and I'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. Thank you to the previous speakers. I think you really set the lens very nicely of what this campus is trying to do and what CSU is trying to do more broadly around fostering critical thinking, fostering appropriate and ethical usage, and in really kind of not shying away from the challenging conversations. I have no illusions about the pros and the cons of what this technology is bringing into academia. I'm here today to just show you what your students can use it for and what hopefully you can use it for as well. Just quickly, a show of hands, who represents staff? Cool. Faculty? Cool, and I think we have a few students as well, yes. Okay, awesome. Who's used ChatGPT like today? Okay, cool. This week? This month? Okay, cool. You are part of 900 million people globally using the tool. So excited to see the momentum that this campus has been building. I want to set a quick foundation of what ChatGPT education is and why it matters in an academic context. You're all aware CSU undertook a truly pioneering initiative in deploying our tool across the entire system, 460,000 students, 63,000 faculty and staff. Largest four-year university system in the US, moving together as one. It's not a pilot in a lab. It's a system-wide reality. It's one of the largest deployments of ChatGPT in the world, and you're all at the forefront of it. I'll skip through this. I'm not here to do corporate rah-rah, but this really is our mission at OpenAI, ensure that AGI benefits all of humanity. I see this every day in my colleagues' decision-making around user safety, transparency, real-world impact, especially in education. We have a lot of work to do here, but we're trying to do it in a thoughtful manner. But that's why you all matter as faculty, staff, and students. You're not end users. You're shaping how this technology gets applied, how it gets questioned, how it gets improved, and how it gets made more equitable. You're really shaping the future of how AI tools are going to be used at Dominguez Hills, as well as across the CSU system. You're all aware that AI adoption is moving faster than most major technology shifts. One of our lightning speakers spoke to this, but it means two things. First, that these tools are already part of the way that people work and learn. And second, that using them well, knowing their strengths and their weaknesses is becoming a real and valuable skill. What was previously siloed to researchers, developers, technical experts is now available to everyone. And the gap is now no longer about access. It's about knowing how to use AI in a way that's accurate, that's efficient, and that is academically appropriate. I'm going to get right into some examples here. Before I do, I really do want to ground on this slide. ChatGPT EDU through CSUDH is your secure version of ChatGPT. It's fundamentally enterprise grade. Your data stays within the campus system, the campus workspace. It does not train OpenAI's models. That's part of the reason for this partnership. Your colleagues and your peers cannot see what you do in ChatGPT unless you choose to share a chat or share a project that you're working on. It bears repeating. This is your secure EDU environment. We don't train your data, and more importantly, CSU is not proactively monitoring your usage. We're still very much in a trust building phase right now. We want to build that, and part of that comes with allowing folks to use the tool however they see fit. This is a major sticking point for students. It's one of my big challenges around, hey, am I being scrutinized? Am I being policed? They don't have time. Nobody has time. I want to jump into some common, we've heard from the previous presenters around some top use cases, but just highlighting some that tend to be very practical among faculty. Teachers use ChatGPT for lesson and unit planning, creating assignments, drafting feedback, communicating with leadership, scaffolding for different types of learners, and overall reducing administrative workload, which I think is one of the biggest boons. What connects all of these is that ChatGPT helps accelerate work that already exists. It's often most valuable not when it replaces a process, but when it helps you do that process faster, more clearly, or with more options. So a foundational piece of faculty's day-to-day planning often involves kind of 3 levels of effort: getting started, adapting to a particular group of students, and refining materials over time. ChatGPT can help with all 3. It can generate a strong first draft, adapt a plan for a course level or learner need, and help revise something that you already use, like a previous syllabus or a classroom activity. For most teachers, the best workflow is not starting from nothing. It's bringing in your goals, your standards, your constraints, and then using ChatGPT to help shape a draft more quickly. I want to start with a simple but pretty powerful approach. One of the best ways to begin with ChatGPT is just ask it how it can help in your specific role. Hopefully everyone here is using your EDU account. Some folks may be more familiar or not. Before I actually show this example, I'm going to call out what I think is probably one of the more underutilized features or less utilized features in the tool, and that's around personalization. If you go into your profile and you go to the bottom left, you have this personalization configuration. You'll hear a lot of conversation on the internet are like, oh, this model talks this way, this model talks another way. No one's going in and changing this, and this is your full set of levers on how you like to be communicated with by a tool such as ChatGPT. So we have a bunch of presets here, personas in terms of how it will respond to you. I like efficient. I think we just got rid of nerdy, which was super bummer for me. But quirky, you can probably massage that in the right direction. You can get a little bit more granular here with warmth, enthusiasm, how it returns data sets and formats, structure. Let's all just collectively use less emoji. You can add also custom instructions. This is where you can get really creative, have it speak like a philosopher, have it speak like a pirate. Your kind of world's your oyster in terms of this, and then every chat you have will adhere to this persona. You can then give it a little bit more context about yourself, more about what your role may be at CSU. Also just quickly call out this concept of memory. We'll get into this as well when we talk about projects, but memory is what ChatGPT is trying to understand about you as the user. So we've given it some of this around my occupation. You can tell ChatGPT, hey, remember my birth date, remember my wife's name. I hope it doesn't need that. Remember various facts about what you're trying to do, and it will use that to kind of further hone the lens of when it's returning an answer to you, what you're hoping to achieve there. You can go in here and manage these at any time. You can delete them, but this is a great way to just really shape how this tool works for you and how it speaks to you. So I definitely wanted to call that out before we get in. But back to my previous example, tell it what you do, ask it how it can help you. This is a baseline that most people kind of skip over, and I think this is a super valuable way. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is up. I think I just connected. There we go. Great way to kind of start structuring, and the context helps to make the tool response relevant immediately, rather than starting with overly generic examples. As this comes together, let's see, I can scroll down. I can really zoom in on something that may be relevant to me. So creative active learning. Let's say we're going to build a course plan. So I'm going to grab a prompt here that I've pre-written as kind of a follow-up to one of these examples. So I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm planning a 45-minute lesson on Maslow, a hierarchy of needs. My students have been introduced to the core concept, but they struggle to explain how it ties to their own education or personal development. So then I'm asking the tool to create a lesson outline with a warm-up, a mini lesson, guided practice, independent practice, and an exit ticket of validation. And then I'm saying include one scaffold for students who maybe need extra support. So now we're moving from an idea into a first draft. And note that I'm giving ChatGPT a lot of context here. The more you share, zoom in or go slower or longer? Zoom in, thank you. There we go, okay. So coming back to the lesson plan, I gave it, the course level of the subject, the lesson length, what students already know, where they're struggling, and that really helps make this output useful. I can't see what's on my screen, so. Have the exit ticket, scaffolding for extra support. And I'm not just asking for a lesson, I'm asking for a structured lesson with specific components that I want to include. Again, really the goal here is to just remove some of that initial friction from 0 to 50, 60, 80%, and get you on your way. When we're thinking about the additional functionality, you're probably all aware, one of the key things that most folks use ChatGPT for day to day is just basic web searching. But now I have this draft. I can either select web search. All of your tools, by the way, are going to be in this plus if you're not familiar, and I'll get into more of these in just a second. I can instantiate web search. It generally knows when it needs to go collect the latest information rather than draw on what the model already understands. But I'm going to say search for 2 to 3 real-world examples of the hierarchy in action in the modern world and make it engaging for college students. Food pantries, great example. So I'm going to try to keep zooming in. So what you're seeing here is a pretty foundational pattern with ChatGPT, asking it to help in plain language. You don't need any special technical vocabulary to begin here. A clear teaching question is often enough to start building a useful response. This matters because planning often begins with thinking out loud. You might want help shaping a lesson, clarifying why a concept matters, or generating ideas of how to teach something. ChatGPT can be a thought partner at that early stage. Shifting a little bit to a staff lens as we explore some additional features. So across admin, HR, student affairs, staff spend a lot of time generating emails, announcements, reminders, follow-ups. ChatGPT can help generate those communications very quickly while maintaining consistency of tone and clear messaging. I won't dive too deep into these examples. They should be pretty straightforward, but I think the key takeaway is that ChatGPT acts as a communication accelerator, helping you move from a blank page to a first draft in a couple of seconds, while allowing you to kind of review and tailor the message before sending it out. We'll get into some of this as well, just around repeatable workflows, things that you find yourself doing day to day. The biggest boon of ChatGPT is to get the rote and repetitive stuff off of your plate as quickly as possible. But what you do with that extra time is where the value actually comes. In these use cases that I have highlighted here, ChatGPT isn't replacing a human review process. I am very much an advocate of human in the loop. We've jumped from AI is bad and it hallucinates all the time to AI is taking all the jobs. We've skipped a really sizable middle portion here where human validation, human expertise, human in the loop decision making, creativity, thinking are still very much a key skill that needs to be fostered, both for yourselves and for students. And we're not trying to replace institutional expertise. It's here to help you analyze information faster, surface patterns that you may be missing, and communicate insights clearly, enabling you to move quickly from data points to action. Another really strong workflow is bringing in materials you already use. That might be a policy document, an article, a worksheet, or a draft lesson. ChatGPT can help summarize, as I think we've seen demonstrated, but I'll just quickly drop an example here. This is where teachers and staff, I feel like, get a lot of value because they're using existing content as the starting point and asking for adaptation, simplification, extension, or supporting materials. So jumping over here to the last presenter's comment, just start a new chat. if it's on a different topic. There's no limit to how many chats you can start. If you have a long conversation and you try to shift topics midstream, it's going to try to reference all of that previous conversation, and it's going to dilute the potential response. It's going to create conflict in terms of what it's actually trying to achieve. Just start a new chat if you take nothing else today. So I'm going to upload a document. A colleague shared with me a pretty meaty academic paper on palynology. Does anybody know what palynology is? I do, because I have terrible allergies recently. It's just study of pollen and spores. I'm uploading this document. I'm asking it to summarize the findings and the main argument in 10 bullet points or fewer. Again, giving it more of that structure of what the output should look like. You'll see it's citing the document specifically. We'll get more into citations in a second. So really pulling out the thrust of this, I think it was like a 42-page article, where we can now shift from a workflow design. I've done some analysis of the document. Quickly raise your hand if you've used the Canvas functionality. Awesome, in that this is a great opportunity. I see no hands raised. Canvas basically allows you to work directly on drafts and create a more collaborative back and forth with the tool. Typically, if you ask it to create an output, maybe it's an email, maybe it's an executive summary, it does that. It gives you your wall of text or whatever you were looking for. And then maybe you do want to make a small tweak. You just want to change the tone of one paragraph. Rather than having it regenerate the entire output to modify that component, you can go in line and ask it to do some work there as well. So let's, as an example, let's use this output, this breakdown of this document. We're going to open a canvas. You can do /canvas. You can say canvas. Generally, it knows if you're editing a document, it will open in this format. And I'm going to, let's see how I want to do this. I want to highlight also another feature that I think is super underutilized in kind of this new way of working with these tools. Many of you have probably heard of our voice mode, where you're talking to the tool and it talks like a person, and it's cool, it's a little scary, but it's powerful, and it's all these things. Dictation mode is a sleeper functionality. I use it regularly to actually just stream of conscious. I don't have to write a perfect prompt all the time. Sometimes I just need to like get a thought out. When I'm talking to the tool, it's going to remove all the ums, ands, all the pauses that I have while I'm thinking, and it's just going to get to the thrust of it. Let's put together an abstract about palynology for the head of the department and proposing a new course specifically on this topic. You can tell I didn't prepare that one. As you can see, it's now opened up this canvas. What this allows me to do is now inline edit up here the document. So I hit edit, and you're going to now we're kind of in this canvas mode. On the left is our previous chat. I can make macro adjustments to this entire document right from here. I can also go in and select specific sections, and it's going to just edit that specific component of what I'm working on. So really just trying to articulate that it's allowing you to kind of stay in control of the overall idea of what you're building on while improving structure, making tweaks, editing and revising. You'll have the opportunity to show changes, go backwards. We're getting closer to kind of the Google Docs type functionality just with this ingrained. I'll also just quickly call out in the bottom right here a few additional tools that can be leveraged just for drafting. Again, emojis, let's stop. Adding a final polish. You can adjust the reading level, so maybe this needs to be made a bit more concise or a bit more verbose. You can make those adjustments right here with a slider. You can adjust the overall length, so when we're talking about drafting comms that need to be sent out to the campus, you can make that short and concise. You can tailor it for Slack or Teams, and then you can have the tool actually suggest edits, and it will provide inline commenting on what it's put out here. Shifting gears. I told you we were going to be going through a lot today. We all know here that learning comes with friction. if you've not explored study mode yet, if you have students in your class who are using these tools, encourage them to explore study mode. This was a feature developed in partnership with the American Federation of Teachers, over 40 pedagogical leaders and cognitive neuroscientists. Study mode is about learning and not just getting the answer. And you're going to see more of this from OpenAI in general, especially within the academic sector, around how we're doing less of the spoon feeding and more of the let's work for the answer. Instead of producing a single response and moving on, it helps you work through a topic in the way a tutor would, checking what you already know, breaking the problem into steps, and giving you praxis and feedback. This also works for faculty and staff in your own learning. Perhaps you want to get up to speed on a latest policy documentation. You can point study mode to a specific URL or upload a document, and it can create quiz questions to check your own knowledge. So jumping back here, I'm going to start a fresh chat. Again, this tool is located. You can do /study, or you can grab study and learn right here. I'm preparing for a week 5 quiz in my archaeology class. We're studying the Neolithic and hand tools. I haven't really done any of the readings. Can you help me figure out where to start? So you can see it's giving some of that initial structure, trying to understand where I am in my learning, and breaking down from there. Again, this can be, you can upload a document. If you had a long reading, you can upload it, instantiate study mode, and it's going to ask questions about that reading for you. I'm going to shift gears once again. Has anyone here explored deep research? Awesome. This is one of the most powerful things you have at your, outside of just ChatGPT, this was one of the most exciting things that we've released over the past, I think it's about a year now. It's our first foray into what we call agentic tools that can work on a longer horizon task that you give it. And in this case, it's doing a myriad of web searches over a period of time based on instructions that you give it. I will tee up a prompt here, and I have an example that will demonstrate, but basically it can pour over massive amounts of text, PDFs, and it pivots as needed in reaction to the information that it encounters. And basically in minutes, it can help produce cited research that would have taken hours or sometimes even days to do. Again, grabbing the functionality here, deep research. I'm asking it to use reliable sources. When I've turned on deep research, I can be very explicit. I can specify the sources that I want it to include, so I can point it to specific URLs that I want to have be part of this analysis. I'm asking it to look at student application yield and deposits, evidence-based interventions that improve yield, KPI frameworks. I'm asking it then to summarize findings and put together a short "so what for us" section tailored to a mid to large public university. And then I'm asking to include 5 questions to ask internally to validate fit. I'll fire this off and you'll get to see it start working, but I'll jump over to an example where this is already run. You can see how it's begun to break down the task that I've set out into its constituent components. It's going to give me a couple seconds to look over what it's about to go off and do. So it's not going to just immediately fire off. I can edit this. I can make some tweaks to the direction if I don't think this is aligned with how I want it to do the work. Otherwise, I can just kick this off and it's going to start doing those web searches. I'm going to jump over to an example. I'll stop this one. I'm going to jump over to an example that I did just before. And now I'm getting the output that I asked for, an executive summary with 5 to 10 bullet points. Citations included here as well, so I can click validate sources. I think this is again coming back to critical thinking, the stage that we're in with this technology of trust but verify. If it's a $5 question, you can trust the models implicitly. If you're making a $5 million decision, it still requires expertise and domain verification. I'll pause. Any questions? I know this feels like a speed run even for me, so I would love if there's any questions on the Canvas or deep research. Otherwise, I'll keep trucking. Cool. I want to shift gears a little bit into prompting efficiency techniques. It's very easy for users to try a prompt. Maybe the output isn't exactly what they were looking for. They throw their hands up in the air and AI is not good. I totally understand that. Raise your hand if you know what PEBKAC means. Problem exists between chair and keyboard. Good prompting, the models are getting infinitely better, we know this, but good prompting helps mitigate some of those unexpected responses or things that just don't meet what we're trying to achieve. Iterate, refine. These tools can make mistakes. We say that on every chat. They absolutely still demand expertise, but they really can help accelerate from 0 to 75%, 85% of what's needed for most common repetitive tasks. You likely have heard the term prompt engineering. It just means shaping your instructions so that the model understands what good looks like. In practice, again, you don't need to know advanced terminology. You just need to know that clearer inputs lead to more useful outputs. Shocking. A reliable prompt has 3 parts: the task, the context, and the output format. So what do you want it to do? What should it know about your situation? And what should the answer look like? Most weak prompts fail because one of those pieces is missing. You also might have heard the term one-shot prompting, like writing a prompt so good it just goes off and does it. Part of that is also providing examples. Provide an example of what the expected format could look like. You could upload a document and say, hey, here's what I want it to look like when you're done. It's going to use that as reference as it goes off and takes the task. So here you can see what a good prompt looks like as it takes shape. So help me design a series of psychology quiz questions. Great. I'm teaching a 200-level course about Maslow. More context. Include 3 trick questions that are misaligned with his principles, really giving the expectation of what that output should look like. Again, no pressure. The beauty of ChatGPT is that you can always try again. If your prompts aren't giving you the exact output you expect, iterating, adding more context and follow-up questions, clarify by asking ChatGPT to lay out its thought process and provide sources, a great way for it to be self-reflective. You can ask it to grade itself on an output as well. You can experiment with different ways to approach tasks to build your own intuition for what ChatGPT can and can't do. As you get more comfortable with this tool and how it responds to your prompts, there's also a great opportunity to create almost your own eval. And by that, I mean a way of standardizing a process that's familiar to you as we release new models using that same process, that same prompt, or that same output as your rubric for how the new model performs. And I want to be very clear. I don't care which models and which tools you all use. CSU is providing ChatGPT to everyone. I think you should take advantage of that. I think you will find that it's the best tool across the board, but you should be experimenting with all of them and seeing what works, where things fail, where other models are stronger, where we're stronger. So definitely explore that further. You also don't need to write perfect prompts from scratch. This blows my mind continually, this concept of meta prompting. You can ask ChatGPT how ChatGPT likes to be spoken to. You can kind of give it the broad strokes of what you're trying to achieve and refine that prompt before you actually do a deep research query, as an example. This helps lower the barrier of entry for newer users and helps students learn what better prompting can look like over time. I covered custom instructions. We'll skip over that. I want to now kind of get into what building some solutions and potentially activities in the classroom can look like. We have 3 that I'm going to focus in on today. We're releasing things every other day. There's going to be more to come here in the coming weeks. We have Canvas apps, which I'll click into. We have projects, which I think were germane to one of the GPT examples from our previous presenter that I'll get into, and then custom GPTs. So in Canvas, I showed you what working on a document can look like. I'm going to zoom out here, and I didn't call out in the deep research prompt. That took 11 minutes. It was 23 citations. This is my demo environment, so that's broken, but you could see all the citations and searches there. I'm going to start a new canvas. And again, just in natural language, I'm going to ask it something. So I want to build a simple dashboard that shows faculty some aggregated insights from student testing to help them understand actual AI usage with clearer expectation and where clearer expectations are needed. Think about key metrics that would be readily available to from the testing results and from OpenAI admin reporting sources. The dashboard theme should include California State University colors and make sure there's a file upload component. For this example, populate the dashboard with dummy data that positively correlates AI education to learning outcomes. We'll give this 1 second. The tool will think. I have an example ready to go. So what it's doing right now is it's spinning up Python code, and it's actually writing the UI for this dashboard that I've asked it to. Similar to the document editing, you can do similar code-based processes here. You can ask what specific pieces of code do. You can change things in line. You can ask it to add comments, refine, look for bugs if you have your own code. So I don't know how many lines of code that was. It's done. Up here in the canvas, I can now actually preview it as an app in the tool. That's one-shot prompting. This can be shared with colleagues. This can be shared with students. Really, world's your oyster from a creativity perspective around what types of experiences you can build just using the in-app Canvas tool. And again, similar to the writing example, I can make broad strokes edits over here on the left, or I can go into the code or ask it to make some changes there as well. Highly encourage folks to explore this after. It's just a fun way to build mock-ups, proof of concepts of ideas. Great for student activities on ways to demonstrate a specific concept or workflow. Now I'm going to shift over to projects. This is where collaboration gets even more interesting. I'll shift over to projects. Projects as a functionality, it was like the internet's #1 requested thing about a year ago, is just make a folder so I can put all the same chats about one thing in this folder. Thank you, sir. No problem. All right, there we go. Project only memory. So I showed you what ChatGPT memory looks like of, hey, this is what it's learning about me as a user. Project only memory keeps it laser focused on just the chats that you're having in this project about a specific topic. If we get out of this. So I've created a project for today. Here are all the chats that I've had about this project. Similar to a GPT, a custom GPT, which we'll get into in just a second, I can add source material. I can add documents, files, PDFs, images, whatever you'd like. And this is going to be the continued context for every new chat within this project. So if you're doing a long horizon task, or you're working on an end of year closeout, or you're rebuilding a curriculum, you can keep everything tightly together here. And it's always going to reference the same information. You don't have to upload it every time. And the project is also, because you have memory enabled, it's self-aware of all of the conversations that you've had. So if you're having this back and forth, you're trying to flesh out an idea, or if you're a student and you're having chats about preparing for a quiz and you've uploaded your notes, you can ask the tool to find blind spots. What have I not covered? What areas am I weakest on? Where did I answer incorrectly? And it really allows you to kind of get the full picture of everything that's happening in this project. You're fine. In the project settings, up here on the top right, I can add those additional instructions, so I can give it a little bit more of, here's the project that I'm working on with my team, and here's the expected final result that we're all working towards. I can then bring in my team, my peers, and we can all share in this project. I can add them individually by email. I can add in groups as well. And then I'll be able to see everyone's chat in this project. Everyone can see everyone's chat. You can't go in and change anything. You can branch a chat and go off and take it in your own direction. But this is a great way to have kind of that shared experience. And then as maybe the project is coming to completion or we want to get an understanding of what the students were talking about, you can ask the tool to summarize all the conversations in the project. Again, identify top contributors, identify areas where there may need to be some additional materials provided, things like that. So a lot of flexibility here. Projects are really interesting because they help scale AI safely and consistently. You're centralizing that knowledge, the data, that way of working for an initiative. And so everyone is operating from the same source of truth. So the result there is that higher quality output, fewer errors, and less missing context, and a more repeatable process that you can roll out across teams and initiatives. Cool. We'll spend a few minutes on custom GPTs. Custom GPTs are basically a tailored version of ChatGPT that you create for a very specific purpose. They combine unique instructions, similar to the projects that we just showed, knowledge and capabilities where they can actually make calls to internal or external tools to draw in or push out information. Here, just as an example, we have an HR helper GPT that was built on an HR policy guidebook for a school. It gives specific information to staff for questions like, tell me about my 401k contributions. It's drawing on that static piece of knowledge because it has the answer. It's a more dynamic FAQ in the end. So 3 key ingredients in making a custom GPT. Again, we give it instructions, a customized prompt of what the GPT is going to do, context of what the purpose is, what the expected output is, any necessary steps that we want the GPT to take, and maybe even an example of what good looks like. And then we have actions, again, the ability to connect to those third-party tools. I'm working across the system with Dominguez Hills as well around what we're going to be enabling more broadly to be able to draw in Google Drive folders or SharePoint documents, things like that. But I'll just, for the purposes of time and demonstration, I'll quickly jump over here and show you an example. GPTs are also over here on the left bar. I can show you one that we have right now. We built an orientation GPT. So new students, new faculty, here are all the files. Here's everything that you need to know, all the URLs to the websites that we may be providing to you that are going to help you get up to speed on campus. I've got some preset questions for a new user who's jumping in, and it's going to search the knowledge. And clearly this doesn't have a great answer on this example, but we'll get into what building this looks like in just a second. To create a GPT, you're going into Explore. On the top right, in the middle, you'll see GPTs that have been made available across the campus. So these are kind of like codified processes. Orientation Guide's a good example, HR Guide. You'll see at the top right, my GPTs. These are ones that I've built as well as shared with me, GPTs that somebody else has decided to make available to me. I'm in my demo environment. I'll go ahead and create a new GPT. Kind of 2 paths here that you can pursue. What you're looking at is the Configure tab. We also have the Create tab. Configure is like all the levers under the hood. I'll come back to it in just a second. As with everything that we can do in ChatGPT, natural language is probably your best starting point. So I'm going to go over to the Create tab, and I'm just going to talk to ChatGPT and frame out what I want this specific thing to do. I want to build an academic-style, integrity-safe coding helper, an assistant that explains concepts and debugging strategies without giving direct assignment answers, while including CSU's academic integrity policies as guidelines in the knowledge. I want it to be incredibly sarcastic and strictly adhere to good coding practices. It's key that the assistant never give the answer, only suggest direction for the user to realize the solution. So this is like a GPT within the GPT, building out the instructions, and it will inform that configuration step. While this is processing, I'll call out that when you're thinking about building a custom GPT, just have it do one thing. GPTs that try to do more than a handful of things, that's where we start seeing that dilution of the model performance. You can build multiple GPTs, and in a normal chat, you can @mention them and tag them in to do a specific thing, and then you can continue your conversation, and maybe you want to do a different process and tag in a separate GPT. Great. We've got a name. GPTs are great because they're basically ready-to-use experts in a specific domain that you can launch instantly, and it's a one-to-one experience versus projects which can be more multiplayer. GPTs really are suited well for repeatable tasks where you need consistency. So like on-brand language, as an example, generating a class syllabus, as an example, doing specific types of research, and you're basically packaging step-by-step guidance with trusted data sources, with style rules into one GPT. Great. We've got our code mentor here. I am able to test and preview this on the right side in real time. So you can see that it's populated some questions. Let's see. So the sarcasm worked. I'll upload a coding example later, but I think you're hopefully getting the idea of what this can look like. I'll jump back to the configuration and you'll see what that natural language has just populated. We've given it a name, we've given it a description, and we've given it instructions. This is how the GPT is going to behave. You can go in here and make tweaks and test it in real time as well. It's going to have some conversation starters, maybe some common questions that you see. We often see IT teams build an IT helper. How do I get the Wi-Fi set up in this building? Cool, I have all of that knowledge, I'm ready to go. That's one less basic question that needs to be answered by somebody in real time. Here's where I can upload static knowledge files. So those policy documents, syllabus, style guides, anything like that can all live here. You don't need to worry about recommended model too much. Generally, the latest is the best. And then you can determine what capabilities this specific custom GPT can call. So web search, if you don't want it to grab outside information, if you want it to just adhere to the policy documents, as an example, you can disable that. Apps allow you to connect to additional data sources. I won't go too far into that for the purpose of today. We don't need image generation, but we do need code interpreter because this is a coding tool. And these will automatically save. I won't spend too much time on this slide, just a breakdown of the potential applications of a project versus a custom GPT. GPTs, again, a repeatable playbook. Think of projects more as an evolving workspace where you're working on a longer task, either by yourself or with colleagues. I'll pause here. We've already had some great comments on this. I think from what I've been seeing across campuses, I work all across CSU. I work with other large institutions across the country. These three have been standing out to me. Encouraging AI honesty. We're still, again, very much in a trust building phase. When it can be used, how it should be used. And it's very easy to overlook faculty's role in that conversation in terms of shaping how students are using AI, be it ChatGPT or any other tools. One of the key friction points that we've heard from the CSU Student Association was in your syllabus or at a course or activity level, make it explicitly clear when it's permitted. That's step one. We're seeing more and more faculty. I think we had an example in the previous talk, proactively including AI disclosure forms as part of their assignments. If you're a student, this is a great way to intercept that, build that trust out the gate. Explain to the teacher how you used ChatGPT to build an outline, research a topic you weren't familiar with. A great way to just clearly acknowledge and cite the use of other tools. Again, really helps in mitigating friction on both sides. Ultimately, students and faculty and staff, you're responsible for anything that you produce, even if AI helped you create it, if your name is on it. That kind of moves into thinking for yourself. Encouraging students to use it to brainstorm ideas, clarify concepts, or check understanding, but to always review what it gives you critically. These tools can make mistakes. They are fallible. We still need critical thinking, or these tools will create the wrong type of experience. I mentioned AI can help accelerate from 75 to 80%, but the final work and your own judgment should still be key. You are still domain experts. I always tell students, if you can't explain the output, you don't own it. And I think that needs to be a continued reflection point that faculty help champion. The last one is really just around building your skills. Hopefully you all consider yourselves lifelong learners. This is a new tool. It is moving terribly fast. And I understand the challenges in making sure that it fits in terms of what you see coursework and pedagogy looking like. But AI does provide an opportunity to push the boundaries of your own expertise or your own discipline. Fundamentally, AI can save individual time. And I said before, it's what you do with that time that really makes the tool most valuable, whether that's things like mentoring or personal development. I believe that when AI is used well, it can be a powerful learning partner. And we continue to see the output of longer and more comprehensive academic studies demonstrating that students or adults who use these tools and approach it with these things in mind are learning faster and deeper than peers who aren't, or who skip the critical thinking step. Really the goal is to make sure it helps you grow, not just get work done. I want to move quickly into some Q&A here and be mindful of time, but I will call out some additional resources to take from here. Again, I'll be sending all this out afterwards, but OpenAI Academy is a great resource, ongoing webinar series. We have speaker events there as well around new functionality, free learning platform to really dive into specific functionalities and how they may fit into your day-to-day. The OpenAI Forum, continued conversations with leading pedagogical experts across academia. And then we also have a ChatGPT EDU newsletter about new functionalities germane to schoolwork. Cool. How am I doing on time? That was good. Okay. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. I'd love to take any questions. Yes, please go ahead.
What about data that involves comparison across multiple authors in which you need to do exegesis?
The question was around comparing multiple authors, or try again.
Sorry. Yeah, so can there be a potential barrier to AI being able to assist you academically when it needs to do comparison and exegesis across multiple authors? In contrast to like trite information such as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I don't think it needs to be debated on what Maslow actually says there, but what about people who have statements that do need to be debated about what they mean?
Is it a question around the tool's ability to compare competing ideas?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I noticed that if you go to Perplexity, for example, and ChatGPT, involve you to like do compare and contrasting and similarity, they'll give you different results. And I think this is due to pattern perception, and certain sources they use are sometimes Reddit or like online forums.
I see what you're getting at. Sure. I acknowledge that, like, if you, depending on how you approach this example, you're going to get very, very different results. When you're talking about mentioning Reddit and the broad corpus of information that these tools, the foundation of the model is built on, you're going to need to provide a lot of structure in terms of what you want to include, what you want to have as reference, what is gospel for this particular position from an individual, and have that inform that comparative analysis. I think that does also come back to prompt structuring, and as well as the knowledge that you upload. So if you want to do kind of a comparison between two schools of thought, and you're uploading what is considered the definitive piece of information on one school of thought and another, and then you ask the tool to compare those two without using external sources, you're going to get a lot more clarity and structure to the overall the dialogue and comparison. So I think the short answer, if I'm understanding the full question, is really how you structure the head-to-head of two competing ideas is key. That does introduce bias. That does introduce opportunities for it to go in a direction that you don't intend. But I think being thoughtful about that approach, asking the tools to reflect on the way that you've framed this, if there's any blind spots in terms of how you're citing a specific school of thought or a position to better balance and ensure that both sides are properly covered. I definitely think that's something that can be approached. A custom GPT could be an example of like, here's two documents of two schools of thought, make them have a dialogue together, create two personas, and here's how they should talk. I hope that answers your question. I don't know if that was the thrust of it. Okay.
In doing your custom GPT for that comparison, make sure that you uncheck web search, because most times if you check websites, it will compare those documents and also pull information from the web from general web pages, and that can give you different results. But if you uncheck web, then it will compare just to data you're working on.
That's a good call out. Again, it's all around guardrailing what information you deem as appropriate to include for a comparison like that. It's the same thing as uploading two giant CSVs to compare against each other. You're being very explicit about what should interact.
I will go pick the study and learn for our students here, because that's a very important tool for them to use in improving their ability to think critically. So can you just spend some time on study and learn for them?
Sure. Anything in particular that you'd want me to call out there? Sure. Again, this is coming back to how you structure the prompt. So again, instantiating study and learn from right here. A couple different examples. Let me see if I have another document that I could pull really quickly. Really the idea is that we're trying to understand where you are in your understanding of a topic and what you're trying to prepare or learn more about. And then from there, guiding you to check knowledge. It offers kind of these reflection points and checks as you continue a conversation. I'm trying to grab a different document. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find it. Well, let's use the example that I uploaded before. So again, heavy academic paper. In my previous example, I was just trying to get the broad strokes out of this. Again, it's qualifying, what I'm studying. If you start study mode within a project, so I see a lot of students will create like, here's my history class, here's the syllabus, here's my notes, and then you won't have to provide the context every time to study mode. But it's going to give a breakdown of the themes from the reading in this particular example. And then it's going to take me down a specific path. So this is not something I've specifically run through study mode. So let's see. Foundations in history. Do we want to go into classification and terminology or systemic value? Let's go to foundations in history. If you try to just have it give you the answer, it's going to push back, which is really the thrust of why it is a good tool. Okay, well, I don't know anything about palynology, but it's guiding me towards the answer rather than just, I got it wrong, here's the answer. Oh, I bet this is microscope. It's also, when it's returning an answer to me, it is going to cite where that information came from. And that's a key component here, especially when you're uploading documents, so you can go back to the reading, read the expanded version of it, and dive in further in. Would you like me to go farther in that example, or was that sufficient? Awesome. Yes?
So we've been talking a lot about generative AI, right? But I heard you for an agentic AI project that is being worked on. And I am curious. Thank you. Thank you. Firstly, thank you for all you walked us through. So our dean sent us something a couple of weeks ago about Einstein,
this agentic AI, basically an impersonator that a young college dropout from Brown decided to create for fun. And the question he asked us was, well, what do we need faculty for if this tool, Einstein, can do what it claims to do, right? It was just to provoke some conversation. So the question what I'm concerned about is we already don't know who is doing what work or what the student is actually doing if they're doing it separated from us. They're in the classroom, physically in the classroom with you. Angela, my colleague, shared that beautiful work that she's doing in the classroom. What are the guardrails that what should we be looking for? Because I can even see emotions being portrayed or written about when there is no emotion in the student. But their response is they're very curious, they're deeply concerned, etc., and they don't have the capacity to even write like that. So it's a form of, in some sense, it's a form of impersonation. You're using the tools completely inappropriately. So any advice, thoughts, since you're dealing with so many of us across so many?
No, it is the elephant in the room of how do we build the trust, allow these tools to do what they're good at, and not allow for misuse and ethics. So I think, again, coming back to the AI disclosure forum, that's one component that I think I've seen a lot of success with around building that conversation, removing the onus from the faculty member of, hey, was this not generated by AI? I'm kind of like excited and somewhat bummed for college students in that, like, let's get the blue books back out. Let's get the oral examinations back out. I think that is the natural way to balance the fast index towards, yes, information's not the barrier anymore. Retaining it and being able to defend it, critically thinking about where the gaps are. We're seeing that's the real shift that is the challenge, and the onus is on OpenAI, it's on other AI tools, and it's on faculty to help shape that narrative. I think we're in the high friction point of that conversation right now. I think between the shifts that I see faculty undertaking in terms of how they're approaching what learning means, what are the outcomes that we're looking for. I have a separate talk that I do just around durable skills that are valuable outside of, irrespective of your domain, what are the things in this future workforce that students are going to need? And I'm happy to send this over as a follow-up because I think it really does shape, are we just trying to get them to test? Are we doing a paper for writing a paper's purpose? Or do we need to shift thinking towards what are the actual outcomes that they need to demonstrate? And I think that's going to come back to demonstrating them as humans to another human. And that's the part of the loop that I'm still really excited about, and why I'm very passionate and believe that faculty's role is evolving and it gets to be more human because you're freeing up the time from all the BS admin stuff, and you get to actually be a mentor and a tutor and understand the person behind the work. And I think that's the real opportunity. Please.
Someone.
Do you want to be the?
Okay. Hi. I actually have a concern regarding the research function. So, you put the prompt, you tell it, I want to write a paper on, let's say, Kant. That's, I wrote a paper recently on Kant, and I had an idea of what to do, which sources to use that were even provided by a professor. But as I read through these sources, I'm like, maybe I want to take a different direction as I was reading. But this process of discovery and, change and moving, I moved away from 5 sources and I completely changed my paper. That's not possible with AI because it's replacing the human curiosity of, reading something, changing your mind, going into something else. So now, realistically, what we're writing is what AI thinks we should use and write. So we're writing a paper in accordance with AI, and I think that's completely anti-human. And I think this whole talk about, it makes things more human, no, it's going to take people's jobs, and it's going to make people dumber, and people really shouldn't use it. So.
Okay, to that point, I think that was largely what I was trying to impart around citing sources, the speed at which you can review sources and glean that information. I think the previous presenter just before me was talking about, I might need to read 5 sources and then realize that they are not the direction that I want to head. Being able to aggregate those sources and distill them more quickly, I think is definitely a key component to what that side of the tool allows you to do. I share some of the same concerns around the dumbing down of research and digging into the words behind the words. That's where I think we are still at a critical phase of building those core skills of questioning the output, not taking things at face value. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done more broadly, but you're driving at a very salient point of what's happening right now. Folks are taking easy mode, and that's where we, faculty and staff, need to intercept that and really double down on what it means to be human and what you need to question and sanity check. You don't take anything at face value, and if you're going to put your name on it, you should be able to understand it and defend it. I don't feel like that's a satisfying answer for you, but I'm happy to talk after this and wax poetic on these topics. Yeah, of course. One more question? Sure.
Thank you for your informative presentation. I started to use ChatGPT something like 3 or 4 years ago when I was teaching. Now I do administration. But at that time, I used to teach immunology, and I saw that ChatGPT had challenges with some disciplines. So my question is, are there some disciplines in which still ChatGPT at this time, because I think in the future it will be more efficient, more accurate. But right now, are there disciplines in which there are limitations of ChatGPT?
I would say obviously in computer science, in math, in the hard sciences, that is where we're seeing the most acceleration. But coming back to the previous point here, I do think humanities and skills like creative writing, yes, it can generate writing. There's no question there. Is it good writing? I leave that up to the viewer. I think that's where a lot of the subjective outputs come from ChatGPT, and I think that's where, again, the more human elements of what is good writing is an area that it does well at, but is not. It's the most open to interpretation and the most open to pushback. And is that maybe an?
Yeah, it can actually, I have used different areas. I have used in editing. My primary language is not English, so to edit in English is great.
Yeah.
But when I ask ChatGPT again, and still right now, I think it's limitations in areas that changes every day, like immunology, maybe biochemistry, etc. Still there are limitations. And I think especially in terms of the new information that fits the
I agree. I think, again, that side of it with medicine, we're going to get to live through an incredible 5 or 10 years here in terms of what's going to be possible on research applications. I think that's true. One of my colleagues referred to, and this is true both for humanities studies and for hard sciences. It is still a tool. They refer to it. ChatGPT is a metal detector for hypotheses. It might not find the exact answer, but it's going to say there's something over here that's anomalous or worth investigation. And I think that's a really interesting way of framing the potential power, where there is still a key human element doing the actual on the ground research that I think is not going away anytime soon. But yeah, it's accelerating in every different direction, some more than others, but we're beholden to kind of guide it in terms of what we want it to be able to do.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.